so that we can share this with other students who perhaps missed out, or if you want to go over this again, if there were some points that maybe you wanted to look over again, or if you missed something, or just want to take notes. We did post the resume workshop that was recorded last Thursday, so that's going to be available now on our CDS YouTube channel, so check that out. All right, so now I've already started recording, so let me just get us. Okay, let's just get us started with the presentation. All right, so today we are going to be covering cover letters. I'm sure that cover letters is an issue for quite a lot of you. I mean, one of the things that I hear a lot from students is just that the cover letter seems either overwhelming or not too comfortable to write about. And they just don't feel ready to send it out to employers. So we'll be going over in detail how you can improve those cover letters, how you can strengthen your writing skills when drafting those letters, and how you can stand out to employers. So first, it's a little bit about me. All right, so this is me. I'm Keith O'Crossy, the Student Career Programs Manager in the Career Development Services Office. I've been a hunter for just over 13 years now, working with both students and alumni. Happy to do that for those years, actually 12 plus years. Who's counting, right? And in terms of my role, I support students with their applications for job opportunities, full-time employment after they graduate. I also support students who need help identifying career opportunities, what their next steps are. And I work very closely with employers putting together our major career programs, including the FAIR, our on-campus interview schedules, information sessions, and panels, and so forth. So rest assured, you're in good hands. All right, so let's go down. Let us begin with what we're going to be covering today first. So the first thing is that you want to make sure that your your cover letters are tailored to the employers that you are looking to apply for and for the specific job or internship programs that you're interested in. So we're definitely going to start off with that, talking about how you can look through that job posting or internship posting, pulling out different aspects that you think are important to focus in on, and how you can then start drafting your cover letter to target those areas and explaining your motivation. The next thing we'll go into is how you can use your experience to showcase your strengths. So rather than just stating what your skills are, you need to really support those ideas with explanation, and that's going to be through explaining your experiences, your internship programs that you've had, your academic experience, and we'll go into depth with that as well. And then finally, another thing that I hope you will be able to get out of today's discussion is that you'll be able to explain why you're the right fit in a clear and confident way. So the real aim here is to breathe life into your resume, to put that human factor into your application. So the intention with the cover letter is to explain that you understand the nature of the work, you're motivated to do the job, you have the skill set to do the job, and you're the right person to call in for an interview, and that's really the aim. So again, we're going to make sure that you have the skills to do that. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going into the waiting room here and admitting everybody. So sorry about that. All right. So just a few things first. As I did mention at the very beginning of the conversation, this session is going to be recorded. The only thing that is going to be picked up is my audio, and I believe also any questions that students might ask through their audio. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And as I mentioned before, this will be available on our YouTube channel. We'll probably have that ready by next Monday or Tuesday. So check that out if you wanted to see the recording of that. And again, the resume workshop that was held last Thursday is now available on the CDS YouTube channel. So check that out if you missed it, or if you want to just check it out. All right, now, the other thing is you're welcome to ask questions. So if you want to unmute your mic for a question, or if you want to send in a chat, you can certainly do so. I will either try to answer that question during the program, or I will respond to you via email afterwards if it's something that I might have missed or couldn't get to. And then finally, keeping it clean. You probably noticed that I had set a everybody into the weight room. And there was a password on this particular webinar. We were all very good last week, and I didn't anticipate that that would be an issue going forward. So I'm sure you're all going to behave and going to be very professional, but you never could be too careful. So just a note on that, all right? All right, cool. So we're going to continue. Next is why your letters are not getting attention. So, you know, obviously you're in this room because either you've drafted a cover letter before and you maybe feel that it was the reason why you didn't get that job or internship or didn't get that invitation to an interview, or you have hesitated writing that letter, you've drafted them and submitted them before but still feel that it's something that's a bit weak. And so we're gonna go into exactly what maybe is going wrong with that. All right, so for one, your letter may not be tailored to the position of the company. I see this a lot of times where you maybe either are summarizing your resume or perhaps you're summarizing things that are not necessarily relevant entirely to that particular job or internship program, or you're using the same letter for every single employer. And while, of course, since there might be a lot of opportunities you're applying for that might seem to be the easy thing to do and a way to really manage that process, at the end of the day, if you think about it in your own perspective, if you were to be receiving those letters and it seemed like something that anybody could send to you, it really wouldn't be appealing. So it's important, you know, to figure out that balance between managing that time that it takes to draft a really solid cover letter and using parts of your experience, your strengths, and your motivations that might be universal to a lot of different types of employers. But at the same time, making sure that the message really is focused on the employer, focused on what they're looking for, because that's really what they want to hear. That's what they're looking for in this letter. The second thing is that you might state very general information about yourself without enough information. So I often find that students will sort of talk about their skills, their ability to work with people, their ability to multitask, and not say much else. And the problem with that approach is that not that those skills are unnecessary or unwarranted to mention and talk about. The problem is it's just too general, it's too broad, and there's a lot of questions that might be open when somebody sees something like that. They might ask themselves, okay, well, they say they're people-centered. How is that so? How have they solved problems for other people, or how have they worked as a part of a team? So you want to be able to explain that through your experience. All right. You may, on the flip side of that, you might provide too many details about your experience without addressing why that information is relevant. So you might summarize different internships you've had or different jobs you've had, or perhaps courses that you've taken without really explaining why that's really important. So again, the cover letter is not a summary of your resume. The cover letter breathes life into the resume. It breathes life into your application. And so I would say, and this may not always be the case, but I would say that employers will probably see your resume first and then look at the cover letter to get a sense of your personality. So here is where you might explain your experience, but to show, yeah, I know what you need, and I'm somebody who's going to be able to provide that value that you're looking for. And so you want to be able to target that message. All right, just a quick moment here. All right, cool. And then finally, your letter doesn't flow well or is poorly organized. So I would say it's important to start out with your message at the very top, and that everything else is consistent with that message, so that you're not jumping around into too many different things. You don't have to feel like you have to cover everything that the employer is asking for in that job or internship description. Focus on one strength, focus on one area that you think really is going to make you the right fit, or why you're motivated, and that's going to make things consistent. The other thing is flow. You know, how your letter flows is also important. If it feels like things are, just sort of jumping around, or if the wording itself is kind of stilted or halted, it sort of sounds a bit awkward. So make sure you're using transition phrases and things flow together very well. And then finally, there are grammar issues. This might be something you need a little bit more work with. So it's always good to have somebody go over that with you. And that's why we're here in the Career Development Services office to help you with that. And of course, there's a lot of resources available throughout Hunter College that help you with your writing skills. So I'd encourage you to use those resources, and I'll share a few of those ideas with you at the end of the presentation. So these are some things that maybe are causing you challenges when it comes to your cover letters. Let me just for a quick moment, I'm going to take a look and see if I have any chats open up quite yet, or if anybody has any questions. I don't see any questions quite yet, so let me just hold on a quick second. All right, so I'll just keep this window open to the side. And if you do have questions, as I said, feel free to ask them as we go along. All right, cool. So it seems like we're in good shape now. So to strengthen your cover letter, ask yourself the following. So start to think about these different things that maybe you're missing in your cover letter or that you're doing in your cover letter that are really causing you some challenges. And what we're going to do following that is we're going to go over an example together to sort of give you some ideas about how to improve those letters. All right, so number one, am I addressing what the employer is looking for? Okay, so again, the employer is going to be thinking about very specific things in their mind. They have an idea, they have an assumption about what this job requires, what this internship program is about, who they're looking for. And if you're not necessarily addressing that clearly enough, it's not going to be appealing. So make sure that your letter really focuses on that and that you are very clear with that. You know, you say, you know, I know that your company is looking for somebody who's very well organized and can manage documentation and you know, with the experience that I've had in administrative roles, I know that I can do that sort of work or something along those lines. Make sure you're really very clear with why you're the right fit. Second, are you starting your letter with a clear and compelling statement about your candidacy, right? So if you're stating things that maybe are very canned, you know, you might be using some of the same statements at the very beginning that are very broad, like, you know, I feel like I'm the right fit, but without really explaining what that means at the very beginning of your letter, it's, again, not going to grab their attention. People read from the top down. So if it seems that you're not getting to the point right away, they're going to lose attention. They're going to say, okay, you know, I don't think this person really understands what this job is about, or they're going to say, you know, I don't even know why I'm reading this because I don't really see what, you know, if this person's not getting to the point. So make sure you are starting at the very beginning with what your, you know, what your candidacy means for this employer and why you're the right fit. And again, be very specific. Explaining potential through your experience. So again, you want to be concrete. You don't want to rely just on strengths or just on skills or explaining those without giving content. So as we talked about last week with regards to the cover letter, the resume, make sure you're focusing on accomplishments. Make sure you're explaining what it was like to work at that internship or what you've either learned or what you contributed to the businesses that you worked for. That really showcases your potential for that organization and why you are going to add value to the team you'll be working with. And do you highlight what you've contributed to the past that will showcase your fit, right? So again, along the same lines, pretty much, you are, you know, not going to summarize everything without saying, you know, if you just say you've had an internship and list a few of the duties without explaining why that's important or why that's relevant or what you learned or what you contributed, it's just not going to be appealing. It's going to seem like every other cover letter or every other application that they've seen, okay? You want to be clear, you want to expand. So if you, for example, worked with young people and as a tutor and those students that you worked with were performing well, if you helped them to become more encouraged with their math skills, for example, and you could see that, you could expand a little bit about what challenges you've faced within that experience. You could explain what you did to actually overcome the challenge. Maybe you designed a few exercises, or maybe you were a little bit more thorough with the students and made sure you were really clear about what their problems were and you addressed that with them. So, you know, and of course, include the result. They became more involved. They were a lot more encouraged. They came every session with energy, and they came with their homework ready to go, and then they knew what their problems were. So really showcase, you know, what you're capable of through that letter and explain that so that they get a sense of who you are. And then finally, again, it goes back to what I said in the last slide, is my letter concise and well organized? The letter should absolutely not be any more than a page, of course. And really a good rule of thumb is probably just about 3 paragraphs maximum. With the majority of the space devoted to the body, that second paragraph. Hi, Edna. Thank you. I'll get to your question in just a second. So make sure that in your letter that you are very clear at the outset what you're, you know, why you're the right fit. and also that everything in your letter is well organized, flows well, and is consistent with the message, the overall reason why you're the right candidate. So let me just take a look at Edna's question here. Shared, so I'm taking an internship for Psych 306. Great, I'm glad you got into that program, very nice. For the fall semester, and supposed to introduce yourself to Hunter College students, of course. And I'm wondering, what address am I supposed to use as a home address? Do you use the Hunter College address? Okay, so I think, Edna, I believe that's probably related to the address that you use in your header. And so, introduce to college. So yeah, I think that if you don't feel comfortable using your home address, then the college address should be just fine. Normally in your cover letters, though, you would start that off with the with your home address. But if you don't feel comfortable sharing that with the employer, it's certainly appropriate to list that as a student. Although, if the question is also that you need to introduce that you are a Hunter College student in your letter, you could start off at the very beginning of your letter, stating that you're a Hunter College student, that you are enrolled in the Psych 306 course, and you're applying for their internship program at whatever institution you have been accepted to. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. If not, I could always go into more detail if you'd like, one-on-one. All right, the other thing is, by the way, I won't be going over format of the cover letter. You could see format and samples on the Career Development Services website. So, you know, I won't be going into that. I'm going to really be diving more so into the content and how you can really strengthen those cover letters as opposed to sort of the general layout. Essentially, though, the format itself should be a professional business letter format, and you can see examples of that on the CDS website. All right, great. So let's move along. Now let's go on to an example. Oh, whoops. It looks like I had just skipped something that that I will skip because I don't probably, if it were, most likely it was probably has typos. You want to make sure, of course, it doesn't have any typos, no grammar errors and so forth. All right, so this is an example that I thought we'd kind of wrap our heads around, and I'll use this as a way to showcase how we can, you know, really tailor our letters and make sure that we are addressing what the employer is looking for. This is an actual job description at an organization which is a social public sort of service research institute called MDRC. They do social science research, and they are hiring right now for a full-time research assistant. So I took this right from their website. So if this is something that you maybe are interested in and looking at full-time work, here's something that might be right up your alley, but I think we can use this as just a way to, you know, get a sense of how we can tailor. So I'll read this off. MDRC is seeking a research assistant to join their family well-being and children development policy area. Studies conducted in the policy area examine how the developmental trajectories of low-income children can be improved through interventions in family employment and economic security, in family relationships and mental health, and in child care and early education. MDRC is seeking candidates interested in working as part of a multidisciplinary team, blending research skills, knowledge of programs for low-income families, and strong organizational skills. Research assistants work under the guidance and supervision of leading public policy researchers. Now, of course, there's a lot more to this job description, but just for sake of this session, I'll keep it brief and we'll focus on the wording that's here. So let me just point out a few things. So what you want to do when it comes to tailoring is you start from the job description, of course. So look through this job description carefully, pull out and identify keywords that you think really stand out very well and you think are really important. So for example, and make assumptions about that. Tie that to your own experience and what you feel is really important and what you think from your own experience, your own motivations, you feel, makes the connection for you. So for example, if you are in a political science major, for example, and you decided to pursue that major because you were interested in policies related to, for low-income families, for example, you could start off with a sentence, words like this, low-income children, for example. Developmental trajectories is also something perhaps that you may want to think about. Maybe you've taken a course where you've learned a little bit about what that means. or you've done an internship where the research that you were involved with through that internship studied just that sort of work. You could go down here in this third paragraph and think about certain skills that the employer is looking for. So we have multidisciplinary team. So this is more than just teamwork, right? So multidisciplinary would indicate that the professionals who are working on that research project, they might be coming from different disciplines. They might be from areas of education. They might be from areas of policy research. They might be from areas of psychology, potentially, sociology. It's important to realize that. And so if you had an exposure to doing that kind of research before, or maybe if anything, you've just worked with leaders in different fields, you might want to mention that, because if you explain that to an employer, that's something that's going to pop to them, that's going to stand out, because it's something that they're interested to see. Blending those research skills, research skills is a very broad word, of course, because there's different ways that we can do research. We can do interview research, we can do case studies, we can do content analysis. There's so many different methods and so many different approaches. But if you've had those experiences, whether it's through your classes, these are things, that's something you obviously want to highlight. And then any kind of knowledge of programs devoted to low-income families. Again, maybe you have worked as an intern, and part of the work was to become familiar with the different programs that are available throughout the city to provide educational support for low-income children and families, okay? And definitely those organizational skills. So thinking about what kind of experiences, maybe you've worked as a cashier, or maybe you've been in customer service, and having to manage multiple tasks at the same time is something that's critical for the work that you've done before. So, again, maybe that's something you can expand on and explain how you've been able to utilize those organizational skills. All right. So it starts, that tailoring starts from really pulling apart and identifying what's really important for the employer. It starts from the job description, and it starts from you kind of synthesizing your own experience and background to some of the things that are going to be important to this employer. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Oh, let me clear those things out. Hold on a quick second. Just a moment. I'm going to pull up that and let's clear it out. All right, cool. Sorry about that. I'm still getting used to the technology here. All right. So this is just one example, and I'm not going to assume this actually is a good example. And you can chime in either in the chat or, whoops, sorry about that. Current slide. So let's look at this. And of course you can chime in either through the chat or you can unmute your mic if you'd like. Would this work? I believe, assuming that this is a draft, this is the body of somebody's cover letter who is interested in applying for this. Would this work? I believe I would be a good fit because I'm looking to build skills for my career in research. I've done an internship in public policy where I filed papers for the IRB and conducted a literature review. I'm sure that I would be an asset to your team. All right. So there's a couple of things that I find could be of issue here. And again, chime in on the chat or feel free to unmute your mic if you'd like. But there's definitely some things that I think can be worked on and can be improved upon, just thinking about some of the questions that were posed in the first few slides, right? So number one, do they necessarily right at the very beginning indicate why they're the right fit or why they're the right candidate for the position? Well, in my opinion, this person, I don't think necessarily does that, right? They do say why they would be a good fit. But on the one hand, they're saying they're looking to build skills for their career in research, and there's a problem there, right? For this kind of a statement, it means that, they are looking to get something out of the experience, which is just fine. But this is a full-time job. This is not an internship program. And so they're looking for somebody to apply those skills within this job. The other thing is it may not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily identify what strengths this person has, what kind of contribution they could add to the team. So I don't think this would be necessarily a good, strong introduction to a cover letter that would convince an employer they'd be the right fit. Now, the next sentence, I think also could be strengthened. They mentioned they had an internship in public policy, which of course could be a relevant experience to have related to this field. And they filed papers for the IRB, and they also conducted a literature review. So those are okay things, but I probably could have found that information on the resume, right? This is something that probably wouldn't be new to the employer. It doesn't give me any more idea about who this person is as a potential candidate. It doesn't necessarily sell this person very well. So what I would say this person should do is really expand on if filing papers is relevant, that's fine. Maybe use different wording, that's one thing. But also, what did that entail? Why was that relevant, and how was that potentially difficult? Were there any systems that they might have used that would show some advanced skills in conducting research? The literature review itself, that's fine. But how extensive was that literature review? How much did that person contribute? What was it like to be in that kind of setting? And of course, again, what does that result in? Was this literature review effective? Was it something that really helped to shape the project that the researchers were? Is this something that really helped to shape the research itself? So again, I think this definitely would be something to work on and expand on. And then finally, assure that I would be an asset to your team. I don't think this necessarily follows from that, right? I mean, there's, I think, just not enough for me to believe, if I was the employer looking at this, to believe that this person really would be an asset to the team, because there's just not enough information there. It doesn't necessarily address what I'd be looking for if I was doing a search for that particular position. So let's take a look at this. Now, again, this doesn't have to be perfect, but I think this example takes this in a different direction. All right, so how about this? I have a strong interest in working in research teams that are dedicated to equity and education. I believe my experience collaborating with researchers during my internship at the Department of Education would make me a great fit. As an intern, I supported the lead researchers to design and implement a data analysis project focused on exploring equity-based programs throughout New York City. During my internship, I ensured that the participant documentation was accurately maintained and in accordance with privacy requirements. To achieve this, I utilized SPSS to manage and evaluate survey data. I also participated in regular team meetings where I presented updates about the data project on a weekly basis. Throughout the experience, I consistently provided assistance to the lead researchers on various projects that led me to receive additional responsibilities. I would be very excited to support research that helps explore issues that affect low-income families. Confident that my organizational skills and team focus attitude will make me a great addition to your team. All right, so let's see. I mean, again, you guys can chime in on the chat. I don't see anybody sort of sharing their thoughts quite yet. So I welcome that. And also, of course, you're welcome to unmute your mic to give your own feedback about this letter. But to me, I think this is a bit stronger, right? I mean, there's certainly a lot more there. If we go up to the top of the screen here, right? This person explains that they're interested in, what their motivation is. And I think this is an interesting way of describing that. This equity in education. Okay, let me just clear that out. Excuse me. Equity in education. All right. That they also have experience collaborating with researchers. So again, it gets right back to, if you remember before, we talked about working on an interdisciplinary team. Right? Oh, good. Thank you very much, Edna. Would that be a good example for an internship cover letter? Sure. I think this could also, thinking about the content of this presentation, the basic premise, the ideas, behind this, I think you could apply to any sort of opportunity, whether it's an internship or a job. So yeah, you absolutely could use this kind of letter to apply for internship programs. Absolutely. And then Yamari, thank you for that question. Is it okay to use an abbreviation in expectation that the person reading our resume will understand the meaning? Yes, that would be certainly fine, Yamari. I would say it's better to abbreviate in this case because professionals in this field will know what SPSS is and why that's why you're including that. So yeah, you don't need to state that in full. Good question. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, cool. Good. All right, cool. So then, so I think she's introducing some very good concepts here, and this could also be a very strong internship program that would show that she's had exposure working in this setting. Again, I think she's using good keywords with things like lead researchers to design and implement a data analysis project. So, and also think about the flow, right? It's clear what the message is. You have, that she's starting out with collaborating with those research teams. She's stating at the beginning what her project was. So, there's not necessarily a lot of jumping around. She's not trying to explain every little detail of the cover letter, and she's also not trying to go into every other experience. It's very focused. And sometimes, as they say, less is more, especially with writing. So when you think about, okay, well, what is my main message? What is my claim? What does my candidacy mean? And you focus in on that, and then you explain that and expand on that, it's going to have a stronger impact than trying to go around the world and back with everything about what you've done. And so sometimes it takes that finesse of really in identifying what really is going to stand out and what you need to focus, to help you to focus and to help really strengthen that letter. And so, yeah, I mean, again, I can kind of, and also the other thing I'm pulled into, and I can kind of, especially if I was a researcher looking to hire, I could understand what it maybe was like to have to maintain that documentation, that there were protocol to follow, understanding what it maybe had been like to utilize that software tool. The fact that this person participated and shared updates on a regular basis also could be very important because it shows that, they're professional. And I think also what's really great is this last sentence, which is related. It's really an accomplishment, right? I mean, if you really were consistent in providing assistance and that led to receiving additional responsibilities as an intern, I think that speaks volumes, right? I mean, if they didn't trust you or if they didn't feel you were really in it and really interested in the work, they probably would have just continued to give you the busy work and didn't give you more projects to work on. And so, this person, I think, really summarized that well. Could this be improved on? Sure. They're probably, just like everything in writing, there's always something that could be done differently. There could be something done more. And if you have thoughts about what could maybe be better or what you'd like to see, definitely would love to see that. Love to see other comments. All right, let me just take a look, actually. Jose, so is it better to focus on one or two things in the job that can relate to you rather than trying to show? Yes. Okay, so one or two things in the job that relate to you rather than trying to show relevancy to all. So I guess to answer your question, I'm not sure if I understand that entirely. I think one, you do want to have you want to have focus, and you want to explain, how you've applied your skills and what you've learned or what you've done, what you've contributed. You do want to think about the reader. And that's why that approach that we talked about earlier of really pulling apart that job or internship description and expanding on it and identifying what you feel you need to focus in on with your cover letter and your resume, of course, is an important part of that process. So you do want to think about your reader and what maybe would be pertinent for this job, but you have to explain your own candidacy. You have to explain, you understand the nature of this work and that you can step in and do this and you do it well and you'll do it because you're interested and motivated. So I hope that answers your question. And if not, just let me know. All right, so the other thing, I think that it's also really important to emphasize motivation too. And I think that this person really underlines that at the bottom here. Excited to support research that helps explore issues that affect low-income families. Again, really addressing the real, the nugget that's at the bottom of this. All right, cool. Good to see that. Thank you, Jose. She really does show that she understands this work and that she'd like to do that. This is the sort of thing that she'd want to be involved with as a professional and as she continues with her career. All right, so I hope that's been a good example for you and has given you some things to think about in terms of how to strengthen your letters, going from something that maybe is too generic, too broad, not explaining enough, to something that really shows, yes, you understand what they need and you're writing to them. All right, so let me go back. I'm going to clear this out. Hold on a quick moment. All right, cool. So let's go to the next slide, where we're going to just kind of address the C's of writing. I don't know if a lot of you have seen the C's of writing in some of your English classes or other classes where professors have wanted to stress some things that are really critical for any kind of writing. So we'll go over this in application to the cover letter. And if you don't know about the C's of writing, well, this is either an introduction or you can look up, because there's some people say there's 3 C's of writing, some 4, some 5. And those English majors of you who really understand that, I would welcome any kind of chime in and some input to that as well. All right, so number 1, you want to make sure your writing is clear, okay? So in the cover letter, again, you want to state what those skills and motivations are at the very beginning, so that when somebody reads that right away, within the first second or two, you know, they're like, okay, I get it, yeah. This person is emphasizing their motivation to work at this company. They're emphasizing their ability to analyze complex data sets and come up with conclusions. Whatever it is that you want to emphasize, whatever you feel is going to make you that right fit, state it right at the very beginning and make that consistent throughout the rest of the letter, so that that argument that you're trying to state is very clear. And then start with that statement and use examples to support that, right? We saw that in the last example. All right. Concise, you know, again, we don't need to go around the world and back. You don't need to explain every single detail on your resume. You don't need to try to hit on every single bullet that's listed in the responsibility requirements in that job or internship description. It's really, you know, again, it gives the employer a flavor of who you are. You're able to show your personality through that cover letter. Something that's not really easy to do with the resume, which is very, you know, bulleted and factual. This is, you know, you explaining who you are, but doing so in a very concise way, in a way that really is impactful. And then, you know, again, it goes back to the statement earlier about that main idea. Everything should be consistent with that, so that it doesn't go into a lot of different details or people are going to get confused and you're going to lose them. And finally, compelling. Use interesting examples and highlight achievements, right? If you're applying for business-related positions and you've been tremendous at sales and you've been really good at developing customer relations, and that's important and helpful for the businesses that you've worked for in the past, and that's brought in more business. If you have come up with new ideas, if maybe you designed software that helped businesses to improve how they do things, or maybe created a design that was really useful for a software application, or maybe created something that was useful for students that you worked for. Think about things that really stand out, that really showcase what you're capable of, so that the employers that are looking at your applications get a sense of your personality, because that's really important when it comes to the cover letter. You know, you don't need to rehash things that are in the resume. It should be personable as well. All right. And so the C's of writing apply to the cover letter as well, of course. And these are just a few grammar tips. I won't go into too much depth with this, but think about those transitional phrases, as I said before. Think about the flow, words like during, my, in addition to, further, etc. You know, if you go online and check that out, you know, if you're not too sure about how to really make those sentences flow together, you know, you can go online and see a few ideas about how you could use those transitional phrases to go from idea to idea. And also think about the proximity of those sentences to each other. So if you make a statement about something in your internship or your job, and then you jump into another idea that which is altogether different, you know, it's just not going to be enough. So let's say, for example, you were a tutor and you just kind of jumped into, you know, projects that you worked on, or maybe you worked in a school and you had a lot of responsibilities and you helped to design activities, you helped to teach students in the classroom, doing a lot of one-on-one, yada, yada. If you state one thing in that letter and then jump into another idea right after that without really providing enough information to make that that earlier point more salient, more interesting, more really close it out, it's not going to be appealing. It's going to be jumping around too much. All right. So make sure that you are transitioning, things flow well, and ideas, consistent and are in close proximity to each other. Use the active voice. So instead of using phrases such as "I was given the responsibility," use "during my internship I." So in the majority of your letter, you should use that action sentence. You obviously don't need to use I throughout the letter, but make sure that you are the center of that letter, that you are the actor throughout that letter, instead of the action being sort of thrown on you, essentially. So make sure you're using the active voice throughout. And then finally on this, these are just a few writing resources. Some of these you're probably already familiar with, but again, with all writing, whether it's for your term papers, whether it's for an essay or a cover letter, the same rules pretty much apply, at least when it comes to grammar and sound writing. So the Hunter College Rockowitz Writing Center is tremendous. I'm not sure of the services that they're offering. I'm sure they're available online as well. So you should check out what they're providing. And they also have a lot of tutorials on their website as well. So check out what they have to help you if you need some more support for your grammar. OWL Purdue, I think, is a tremendous tool for across the board writing. So check that out. It's a really good tool to help you to know the sort of basic fundamentals of sentences to drafting those term papers. So definitely get on that, and it's really easy to navigate. Elements of Style, it's a classic. Check if you haven't picked that up before, if you weren't assigned to that in the class, I would absolutely encourage you to pick that up at some point or look online and see if it's available for download. And a writer's reference is also a really good one as well. So, use those writing tools to help you with those grammar, writing effective letters, as well as any other pieces of writing that you may be drafting soon. All right, so this is kind of coming to the end of the presentation. If you do have any more questions, feel free to share them through the chat or just unmute your mic. I hope this was helpful. So I hope you can now do this. And if you do need extra help, we're here. So, I hope we've been able to go over and help you think about how you can tailor your message to what the employer is looking for, that you now can use your experience to show your strengths. And then finally, that you're able to explain why you're the right fit in a clear and concise and confident way. And I'm sure you'll be able to. And of course, we're here to help to make sure that you can. So definitely drop us a line if you need support. If you need somebody to look over that draft cover letter, we're here. So you can either email career@hunter.cuny.edu. And my email is down there as well. So you're welcome to email me directly with any specific questions that you might have, or if you want to set up a Zoom one-on-one conference call, I'd be happy to do that too. Or you could just email me a draft of your cover letter and what you're applying for, and we can go from there. And then finally, it looked like we were pretty in good shape last week. We had a lot of students, and we had a pretty good showing for today's workshop too, which is nice. I hope this was helpful for you. I do plan on continuing this. So I think Thursdays at 1 o'clock work. Next Thursday is April 16. So at 1 o'clock, I'll be talking about how to network. So we'll go over some of those sort of concepts, how to really present yourself to others, how to network with other with professionals, how to utilize resources like LinkedIn to expand your network, especially now as we are in a situation where it's hard to network, of course, because of social distancing. So how can we do that in a time that is making that even more challenging? Also, another really great workshop that's coming up at the end of the month, Apple will be hosting an interview workshop. You could see the details available on Career Hunter under events, but it's on April 28 at 1 p.m. That's going to be via, I believe it's going to be via Zoom. It'll be online, so the instructions will be there. So check that out. The hiring team at the Apple retail store They'll be covering the do's and don'ts of interviewing, so I'm sure you're going to look forward to that event. I think it's going to be a great way for you to get insight into what employers really want to see from students. Also, at the end of the month, we're going to be hosting a virtual career fair. What that is, and we're still pulling that together, but we'll be a few of the employers that were registered for the fair that unfortunately didn't happen as this circumstance broke in March. They're going to be doing live chats through Career Hunter. So we'll send out details most likely next week with information about that and who'll be participating. And then finally, check out our social media page. We are getting announcements from companies that are hiring or that are hosting information sessions online and want to connect with Hunter students and alumni. We do post a lot of that through our social media. We'll send out emails, but I think the easiest way to follow us and to see what's going on is through our social media. And also, as we go on throughout the weeks, we'll be posting other tidbits of how to improve your internship applications and so many other things. So check us out online to see what else is happening. So with that, I would say that is all. It's been great. Well, I guess hearing from a lot of you, seeing you all, I hope that was helpful. And look forward to seeing you all very soon, at least next Thursday when we talk about networking. So I'll close out now. And as I said, if you have any other questions, let me know. Yep, thank you. All right, cool. Happy to help. Enjoy. All right, have a great day, okay? Take care and be well and be safe. That goes for you, your family, and everyone else in your networks, okay? Enjoy the rest of the day.